When the announcement came that DS2 was getting an all-new revamp to make it harder, let me tell you, I was pumped!
He just made that up. None of the announcements stated that Scholar will make the game harder. They just talked about new graphics and new features.
I wouldn't have to get far into my first playthrough before the game started to feel wrong. Levels felt more claustrophobic than ever. The enemy placement was bizarre at best and infuriating at worst.
Is getting swarmed by stronger hollow soldiers any less infuriating?
Oh no. Literally the next level. Forest of Fallen Giants, on the whole, looks good. There's an ogre here now. It's fine since you're not getting ganked, but I can see this being a problem, especially for new players. The Hyde Knight being gone is weird, but okay. I liked him being there since he gives you a little extra challenge if you're feeling cocky after that big arena, but you don't have to fight him.
It is pretty disingenuous to leave out the fact that Vanilla Forest was a lot gankier and that the archer had much more range. It's also pretty disingenuous how he states that the optional ogre in Scholar is a problem for new players, but somehow the optional Hyde Knight in Vanilla isn't.
Enemy placement isn't massively different so far. Some more enemies here and there.
In his Scholar clip, you can see every enemy that is in Pate's trap. It's a total of 3 hollows and 2 hollow soldiers. He claims that Scholar has more enemies here and there, but in reality this part, like many others, has a lot more enemies in Vanilla. There are 5 more hollow soldiers here in Vanilla, but he showed this area while disingenuously stating that Scholar has more enemies.
The run to Pursuer is the exact same, except there are those knights from the Lost Bastille here now. Why are they here? Don't ask questions.
He clearly did not do any research at all. These are not some random knights from the Lost Bastille. These are the bravest warriors of Vendrick that are here because they were trying to sneak up on the giant lord from behind. So, not only does their placement here make them more lore accurate, it also helps new players to learn their moveset before they might have to fight a whole bunch of them later in the Lost Bastille.
Door is where things get rough. Vanilla's version is also pretty bad, with a pretty small area with not much of a reward for the fights you do here. And I should clarify that New Game Plus, even with the extra enemies, still isn't as bad as Scholar here.
If the Turtle Knights are his problem, it is interesting that he again disingenuously left out the fact that you are getting attacked by multiple Turtle Knights in this tunnel in Vanilla, but that Scholar exchanged them with weak skeletons. It is true that there are 3 Turtle Knights here in Scholar, but you also have explosive barrels now to take care of them much easier. In Vanilla, the third one used to be in this tight room.
and the last giant is the exact same.
Does he even try to verify any of his claims? The last giant, like many other bosses, was nerfed in Scholar. In Scholar, he received a 10% damage reduction, so he no longer two-shots several classes and no longer one-shots some classes if they are at half health. This, along with several other nerfs to the early areas, makes the beginning less frustrating to new players.
They didn't change a single boss other than Nashandra, and they did it in the stupidest possible way. So, Scholar made her harder. How, you ask? By adding more curse orbs. In Vanilla, which I lost the footage of, she has one single curse orb.
First off, no, Nashandra was not buffed. He made the change up and probably deleted his footage of Vanilla because he needed to make up more false reasons to hate on Scholar. Secondly, a lot of bosses have been changed or nerfed, even if he did not try to do any research into this topic. There are some like Freja here where the flow of the fight now changed as the little spiders are afraid of the torch now. Skeleton lords used to spawn 4 of each type, but now spawn more basic skeletons and only 2 bone wheel skeletons. And, like for many other bosses, there are now new NPC summons. Many bosses like Royal Rat Authority, Giant Lord, and especially Ancient Dragon were nerfed. The 20% damage reduction makes it less frustrating to fight against the Royal Rat Authority. Giant Lord received a 30% damage reduction. Ancient Dragon used to be a damage sponge that could easily one-shot players. He received a 40% damage reduction. I'm at max level with relatively good resistances here, and Ancient Dragon still deals way too much damage in Vanilla. In Scholar, he no longer one-shots players with basically every move.
And of course, the Lost Sinner is the exact same. Almost. The lighting in the arena is dark, but you can see the boss in the original. You can't lock on, but you can track the boss and see attacks coming. In Scholar, the entire arena is pitch black and
he is again making a very disingenuous false claim. You can turn on the light in both versions, but in reality it is easier in Scholar. In Scholar, you get the Bastille key right after defeating the optional Ruin Sentinels, but in Vanilla you have to defeat them and also the Belfry Gargoyles.
if you want to fight the wyverns, which you probably should for the upgrade materials, then it means that you're gonna get attacked by exploding hollows while you're focusing on the wyvern. Thank you for making it this far. I hope I've gone into enough detail to show why Scholar didn't improve the DS2 experience like I hoped it would. There's certainly more that I could have talked about, like when I touched briefly on item relocation, but the major sticking point for me, clearly, was enemy placement and the clash between Vanilla's design that was maybe a little lacking, but much more intentional, or Scholar's design that is much harder, but not in any enjoyable way.
I actually only wanted to focus on the Forest of Fallen Giants for this first video, but I just had to include this part as well. It's again pretty disingenuous to act as if you cannot fight the Drakes and Scholar without getting ganked, even though he could have just taken care of the exploding hollows while the Drakes are asleep, and then you can get a few good hits and while the Drake is waking up. In vanilla, the drakes always aggro, so it is much harder to get all the crystal lizards unless you defeat the drakes first. He falsely claims that you will get attacked by exploding hollows while focusing on the drake, but in Scholar the drakes are asleep until you start attacking them. These were just a few examples of him twisting the truth to artificially make Scholar look worse, and I might do more videos on the other areas in the future. So to summarize, like every Scholar hater, he has to rely on evidently false claims and disingenuous cherry picking to make it look worse than vanilla.